leveraging Sunday school for evangelism and for outreach. This is in most churches. Now, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm going to say Sunday school because that's the model that we use at our church. We still call it that. You may be calling it something else: small group, life group, connection group, home group, cell group. Principles are the same, all right? So please don't get sideways over me using Sunday school language. We at my church have Sunday school and big church. Any of y'all have Sunday school and big church? So that's just the terminology that I grew up with. My dad is a Southern Baptist pastor, and I have been a pastor for 20 years at different churches. My first church, we ran about 27 in Sunday school. Second church ran about 50. Third was about 200. And then we've been at First Lafayette, which is a larger church, and so a large Sunday school. So I've been probably wherever you are, I've been in my ministry, and so I can identify with that. I think that's important to share because I don't want you to think that First Lafayette is the only experience that I have, and I'm coming strictly from that perspective. But in your church, your Sunday school is probably the largest organization in your church. If winning people to Jesus, the Great Commission, is the most important thing for your church to do, don't you think that the largest organization in your church ought to be busy doing the most important thing that your church does? And so I want to help us leverage Sunday school for evangelism. I think in many churches, and in my experience, many pastors will view Sunday school as a program that they have to maintain, that it is a discipling program that's focused on discipling believers, and it does do that, but I want to encourage you to rethink and leverage your Sunday school organization for evangelism. We did a study this last year of our baptism. So the church year ends this coming Sunday, so it's a pretty clear picture over the last year of the baptisms at our church. 75% of the baptisms at our church, the people were enrolled and actively attending a Sunday school class before they made a profession of faith and were baptized. You say, oh, well, that must be a lot of children. Well, there were a lot of children that are church family kids that were in Sunday school before, and so the younger you get, the higher the percentage goes. But among our adults 30 and over, it was still 65%. Of the adults 30 and over who were baptized in our church were enrolled, ministered to in Sunday school. I've read a stat somewhere, and I looked through all of my material to try to find this, but it said that 1 out of 2 lost people, lost adults enrolled in Sunday school will come to know Christ within a year. I can't think of any other ministry that has that type of percentage. That percentage may not be exactly accurate, but the bottom line is, if you invite someone, you are praying for someone, you are ministering to someone, you're including someone, and you're working diligently, sharing the gospel week in and week out with that person, they may not all get saved, but it puts them in a really good position to come to Christ. And so we see that Sunday school definitely is used as a tool. So I want to give you, I think I've got 3 keys to leveraging Sunday school for evangelism. And I've got lots of things to say. I'm going to move quickly. Hopefully you can keep up with your note-taking, and I'll be staying around later to visit about it. Key number 1 that I have found is leadership. It's leadership. The senior pastor must support and champion the small group ministry. Period. If the senior pastor does not recognize teachers and recognize Sunday school and encourage people to go to Sunday school and be part of a Sunday school class as much as he can be, then it's not going to go. The greatest cheerleader for Sunday school in your church must be the senior pastor. Now, my Sunday school teacher is in here, and he would say that I am the worst attendance Sunday school member in his class. and that's because it meets while I'm preaching our first service. But I am connected to them so that when there's a fellowship event, our family goes. When there's a ministry need, they come alongside. I am still connected to that Sunday school class and to that group. I am part of a Sunday school class as a pastor. And I heard Johnny Hunt say this many times, and I've adopted it. And I tell people from the pulpit, if you only have 1 hour to come to church, go to Sunday school. I say that with a straight face, because in big church, yes, they need to hear the pastor of the church preach. They need to hear that. That's got to happen. But they also need the ministry of the saints in a small group. And so I champion that. And guys, there's a key there. If they start coming to Sunday school, guess what else will happen? They'll come to big church, okay? But I tell them, if you have 1 hour, go to Sunday school. And our people have embraced that, and they have done that. The pastor's second thing under leadership, the pastor must be the one who casts the vision for the small group ministry and the evangelistic strategy of the small group ministry. The senior pastor has to cast that vision. You are the visionary. You are the one that God is speaking to and leading. You've got to be the one that casts that vision. Now, you may have a Sunday school director. You may have a discipleship pastor. You may have a staff member in charge of that. It doesn't matter. None of them will out-vision cast you as the senior pastor. None of them can do that. You have got to cast that vision. You have got to set that level of expectation. There is no one in your church that is going to be more evangelistically driven than the senior pastor. They may be more a lot of other things, but not in evangelism. So it's got to be you. C, the pastor must engage in the evangelistic strategy personally. If your strategy includes a Tuesday night visitation, you cannot let some lay leader lead that up. They may be doing the administration of it, but your face has to be there. Because if your deacons show up and they don't see the pastor, they're going to say, well, if it's not important to him, it's not important to me. You have personally, as a pastor, have to be there. And I would encourage you, if you've got staff at your church, you make that part of their job description. They must be there. And so you got to do it. The fourth thing is this. Department leaders, teachers, and other leaders must be recruited and trained in the evangelistic strategy. You've got to train people at every level. Now, the way that you start training, let's say you have no one in your church doing this. Number one, pastor, you should be doing it, so there's one doing it. But you invite a man to go with you, and you say, we're going to go make visits. And you go 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row, and then you say, are you comfortable enough to lead a visit yourself? Let's invite 2 more people to go with us. And you invite 2 more, and then you keep doing it, and you multiply that out, and before long, you're going to have more visiting teams than you have people to visit. But what I have found by faith is, if you're willing to go, God will provide the people for you to visit. So we're going to talk about visitation here in a minute, but training people is important. Key number 2 to leverage Sunday school for evangelism is enrollment. It's enrollment. So I want to talk about a couple of issues with enrollment. First of all, when we view our role, the roster of our classes, there are 2 ways to view that. The first way is an attendance list. This is a roster of people who attend our class. The other is a ministry list. This is a roster of people that we are willing to minister to as a class. The differences are these. The attendance list, it relies upon the individual's commitment to the class. The individual is committed to come, therefore they can get on the list. How do you get on the list if it's an attendance list? By doing what? By attending. And so the old Southern Baptist way of doing it, you are a guest until you come 3 times, and then we enroll you in the class. So that's how they get enrolled. How do they come off of attendance list? Death, yes. But if they stop attending, so-and-so hadn't been in a while, go ahead and take them off of our list. Well, if they're not on the list anymore, who is responsible to minister to that person? Are there times where people still need ministry even if they're not attending a class in person? I have a feeling that those who stop attending a class in person are the greatest in need of ministry. There's probably a ministry reason why they're not attending. And so if you take them off the list, you quit ministering to them. Let's talk about a ministry list. The ministry list does not rely upon the individual's commitment to the class. It relies upon the class's commitment to the individual. The ministry list, when you enroll someone, you enroll anyone, anytime, in any place. When someone joins your church, you could have automatic enrollment to where you're enrolling them in that class. They've not committed to go to that class, but that class is committing to minister to them. Automatic enrollment's great, but if you don't have automatic enrollment, what you do is you would say, sir, would you like to be part of our ministry list and on our ministry team? We want to pray with you. We want to include you. We want to invite you to things. And we want to minister to you when you have a need. If he says, nah, I'm not worried about that, okay, fine. But if he says, sure, I'll be on your ministry list, guess what? He's on the ministry list. He may have never attended before, but if you're calling and inviting and ministering to and praying for, eventually what's that person going to do? Show up for the class, for all the people that are praying for them and ministering to them. And so a ministry list. How do you get removed from a ministry list? Well, dying is one way. You change churches. You move away. You enroll in another class, or you ask to be removed from that class. That's how you remove those people. But as long as the class is willing to minister to that person, and that person is willing to receive the ministry from that class, they stay on that roll regardless of if they've attended or not. How many people do we have in our churches that are church members, but they're not enrolled in our Sunday school, and there's no one able to take care of them and minister to them? Even in the smallest of churches, the senior pastor cannot be counted on to minister to every little need that is out there. In fact, we're called to equip the saints for the work of ministry. And so how do they do that if they're not enrolled in Sunday school? So you have an attendance list versus a ministry list. The ministry list will engage the class in going after those who are enrolled. It gives them an active role to play instead of a passive role of just letting those who come be on the list. Let me give you a second thing about enrollment. Open enrollment versus closed enrollment. Open enrollment versus closed enrollment. Open enrollment means that anyone can attend at any time. Closed enrollment limits it to a certain group of people for a limited time. So, for instance, the traditional Sunday school literature is designed for open enrollment. If you've missed 8 weeks and you show up, that lesson, while it may be in a series of other lessons, that lesson is a standalone lesson. You can pop in. You don't have to get caught up. You didn't miss a whole lot. I mean, you did miss that, but you're not behind, and you're able to just pop right in. That is open enrollment. That is open curriculum. If you have a discipleship Bible study, a 4-week study, Share Jesus Without Fear. We'll just use that as an example. That is a closed curriculum, a closed group. You sign up for that. You get this book. You're expected to come to these 4 sessions. Well, here's what I have found, and maybe you found this too. When people come to the closed sessions, if they miss session 2, they say, oh, man, I missed it. I'm behind. Guess what I'm not going to do next week? Come to session 3 or session 4. So we have open groups for Sunday school, but our discipleship groups, our grow groups that we have, they're typically closed group. And what we see happening is they will start with a bang. And you'll have 20 people want to be a part of this class. But then 7 weeks down the road, when it ends, you may be down to 5 or 6 people. You do not want your Sunday school class doing that. You don't want if your Sunday school class is closed curriculum or a closed group and you're using that as your small group ministry, or you're not going to be able to use it for Sunday school because you're not going to give them on-ramps into the class. And so you've got to have open enrollment and open curriculum if you're going to leverage small group ministry for evangelism. The next thing about enrollment is I want to talk about the relationship between enrollment and attendance. The relationship between enrollment and attendance. We would all love to see the attendance in our Sunday school department grow. Amen? We want to see more in Sunday school. I tell my staff guys, fellas, we get our raises based on Sunday school attendance. That's what I tell them. It's tongue in cheek, but there's some reality there. We want to see that attendance grow. Now, enrollment to attendance, if you look across the history of Southern Baptist Convention, the history of Sunday school, what they tell us, and if you look at your church, start looking at it, you'll see if you have a valuable enrollment, and it's not just dumping names on a list, okay, but you have a legit enrollment, you will have on any given Sunday between 40% and 55% of your enrollment in attendance that day. Now, why would the percentage be so low? Vacations, work responsibilities. In South Louisiana, we got a lot of guys working offshore on oil rigs. They'll be out 2 weeks or out a month or whatever and come back. So you're going to have people gone. You'll have people sick, vacation, work, all those things. Those are going to happen. If Junior gets sick, now when I was growing up and Junior got sick, everybody would come except Junior and Mama. I mean, that was how that worked. Today, if Junior gets sick, everybody stays home. Grandma will probably stay at home to help out. You know, I mean, it's like everybody's got to stay home if Junior gets sick. So those things happen. And so you're not going to have 100% of your people show up. So 40 to 55%. 40% would be like Labor Day or Memorial Day. It'll be about 40%. 55% will be Promotion Sunday or Mother's Day, or one of those big days that we have. You'll have that 55% number. Now, how do you get attendance to increase? If you maintain enrollment, what is the only way for attendance to increase? For the percentage to go up. You're going to fight 200 years of Sunday school history to get the attendance to go above 60% on a regular basis. You might get it here, there, yonder, but it's gonna be very difficult to get the percentage of the enrollment to go above that 60% number. So what is the other option? You keep the percentage where it is, but you increase the what? The enrollment. So I'll try to do easy numbers here. For me, my brain's already hurting on a Saturday morning, but if you have 100 enrolled and you have 55% that show up, you got 55 people in Sunday school. If you have 200 enrolled and you have 55% show up, guess what? You've doubled. You've doubled. And you get raises at the end of the year. I mean, that's a good deal. So the point is, the key to increasing your Sunday school attendance is not asking people to be more faithful. It's asking more people to be faithful. And so we emphasize enrollment. Enrollment is how you will increase attendance. Let me give you a fourth thing under this key to enrollment. Starting new units is the greatest factor in increasing enrollment. Starting new units. When you start new units, you do a number of things. Y'all remember Flake's formula. I'm sure you've read about this. Know the possibilities. Enlarge the organization, provide space and equipment, enlist and train workers, go after the people. New groups do all of these things, and they will increase enrollment regardless of department. You want more students in the student department? Add new classes. Now, how do you do that? Well, you're going to upset a bunch of 8th grade girls if there's 2 8th grade girls. No, I don't know. You might solve some problems if you divide some of them up. But start new classes. You want more children? Start new classes. You say, well, we don't have the people for that or the space for that or the whatever for that. Hey, pray for it. Ask God to give you the people and go do it. Set the goals and go. And if it happens, awesome. If not, every time that we have started new groups, guess what has happened for us? New enrollment and higher attendance, and within 6 months, the 2 groups combined are greater than the 1 group by itself was before they started a new class. Let me show you what else happens, and I'm going to use this board to do this. I'm going to attempt to draw an equilateral triangle, but you're going to give me grace on this, right? I'm a preacher, not an artist. Well, it'd be nice if a pen worked. Let's try this one. Can y'all see this here? Y'all cannot see that. Well, Okay, imagine an equilateral triangle, okay? And on this triangle, the base and the height and all of these sides are all the same. This is your Sunday school organization. The base, this is your leadership base. This is your attendance. The height is your attendance. If you add a whole bunch of people, but you don't add to your base of leadership, then this becomes a different type of triangle, and it becomes top heavy, and it becomes very difficult to manage. If you add to the base and you maintain an equilateral, if you add leadership to the base, what happens to the height if it maintains the same degrees? The height must grow. If the base grows, everything else must grow in relation to that. And so if you're starting new groups, what it forces you to do is it forces you to multiply leaders. And as you multiply leaders, the end result is multiplied attendance. Now, instead of 4 people that are ministering to folks, you've got 10 people ministering to folks. You multiply the ministry capacity, and it will result in enrollment, and it will result in growth and evangelism. So key number 2 is enrollment. Key number 3, intentionality. Intentionality. You must have an intentional strategy on using Sunday school in evangelism in order for it to produce evangelism. Evangelism does not just happen. You do not ooze into it. It's not just it doesn't just happen. It has to be intentional in order for evangelism to take place. So let me ask some questions and we'll talk about it. First of all, what is your evangelistic prayer strategy in Sunday school? Have you led and trained your people to pray evangelistically in Sunday school? Do they have a class prospect prayer list that they are praying over weekly? Have you engaged prayer connected to a special event like a revival or a harvest Sunday or a promotion Sunday or a bring a friend Sunday? Have you led them in prayer? Have you taught them how to pray? What is your evangelistic prayer strategy? Second thing about intentionality, what is your plan to leverage group time in evangelism? When you have your hour, hour and a half, however long Sunday school is, you have time set aside for donuts and coffee. You have time set aside for the announcements. You have time set aside for the teaching. Do you have time set aside for outreach and evangelism? Do you have time in which the teacher is sharing the gospel? Have you given an invitation? Have you seen people saved in Sunday school? You ought to. They're closest to the lost people. You should see that. Is there time in your Sunday school hour for them to spend time in prayer for prospects, to talk about prospects that they visited, to give out assignments for people to make visits and to make contacts? We set aside time for whatever is important to us. If we don't set aside time for evangelism, can we say that it's important to us? So if it's important to you, you're going to have time. Think about leveraging the Sunday school hour in a couple of ways. Some ways that we've done that. These are just some ideas. A bring a friend emphasis. A Sunday school enrollment emphasis where you're leading your Sunday school department through enrolling people. We did this at our church. I read about it. This is an old school method that is awesome. Have a special evangelistic emphasis during Sunday morning. You have 4 children's Sunday school classes. Bring them all together during the Sunday school hour and have the senior pastor come and share the gospel and invite children to respond to the gospel during Sunday school. My mother was led to Christ during Sunday school when the Sunday school teacher said, "Jeanette, come talk to me right quick in the hallway," and shared the gospel with her and led her to Christ during the Sunday school hour. That's definitely can be used. If you have a youth department, have them leave their class for department time, and the pastor or the youth minister or the youth director, whoever, can share the gospel and invite them to respond. Have people ready to receive them and ready to counsel with them and talk with them right there. Set that hook. Use that. We did the same thing with adult departments. In our adult department, we gathered them together and we had evangelistic emphasis on that particular Sunday. Have a breakfast that day. People will show up for breakfast. Baptists at Lafayette will show up for breakfast. Do Baptists where you're from do that? Have breakfast. Have them there. But share the gospel when they get there. So you can leverage Sunday school time for that. All right. What is your plan? C, what is your plan to increase enrollment? If we are seeing people saved who are enrolled in Sunday school, and if we see attendance connected to an increase in enrollment, then we should have a plan on enrolling more people. So what is the strategy to enroll new people? Let me give you a few ideas. An enrollment campaign. They used to do this back in the day, guys. Lifeway would present, or the Home Mission Board, whoever, NAM, they would give this packet, and it would give you all the plans on how to do a Sunday school enrollment campaign. And for multiple weeks, you would talk about it, and you'd pray about it, and you'd preach about it, and you'd have a special day where all the classes set goals, and whoever enrolls the most people would get a pizza party, or would get in our context, a crawfish boil is a great prize for people, all right? Now, that's going to cost you, but it's a great prize. So whoever enrolls the most people or has the most that day or whatever, they get a crawfish bowl. And we have used that well. We call it Connect and then the year. So we had Connect 21, we had Connect 23. We want to connect people to Sunday school. So a big enrollment campaign. Special Sundays, Promotion Sunday, the breakfast, church-wide picnic. We had dinner on the grounds. Talk about old school. People love it. Do you know what we did at our church this last year? Our business meetings, normally, we have one business meeting a year, praise God, but that business meeting would normally have about 50 people show up. So this year, we connected it, we call it a Thankmas meal, and it was between Thanksgiving and Christmas, Thankmas, and we had an old-fashioned potluck dinner. And instead of 50 showing up, we had like 500 showed up for the business meeting because we connected it to the dinner. You want to see it? I'm telling you, do a church-wide picnic on the grounds, potluck style. You worried about germs, just pray over it and pray God takes care of it, all right? But invite them. They will come. If you don't have a Next Steps class, that's one thing that we've had some transition in our church we hadn't had in a while, but a Next Steps class. Either you teach it, do it at lunch on Sunday, do it Sunday night after church, or whenever you can do it. But a Next Steps class where you talk through what it's like to be a church member, and then right there, we want to enroll you in Sunday school. Get them enrolled. A newcomer Sunday school class. So you can start a Sunday school class, and it probably need to be one of the key leaders that's teaching this class. We want to invite all our new people to this class. Everybody in there is going to be new except one person. You are going to plant a mature Sunday school teacher in the newcomers class, and y'all have 7 weeks with the pastor teaching it or education director teaching it or whatever, and at the end of that 7 weeks of a newcomers class, you say, hey guys, the 7 weeks is over, but we have a guy in here that you've got to know who is actually one of our Sunday school teachers. He's going to be teaching you guys next week. We want to encourage you to come be a part of that class. Who wants to enroll in that group? And so you on-ramp them with a newcomers class. A special emphasis class. You struggling with parents of teenagers? Do a 6-week study on Sunday morning. It'd be closed curriculum, but do it on Sunday morning on parenting teenagers. And at the end of that, say, guys, we've had such a great time together. We want to start a Sunday school class for parents of teenagers. You've got to know some over the last 6 weeks. Here's the teacher. Next week, we're going to be in this room. You come be a part of that. You're on-ramping new classes, and you're on-ramping in evangelism and in enrollment. Okay, next bit. How much time we got? We doing all right? I feel like I'm flying through this. I want to get to some questions, but we're going to fly through it. Here we go. Ongoing visitation. We've been talking about a dinosaur, guys. Y'all ready? Paleontology. Here we go. Ongoing visitation. If you go to a college campus and you have an athletic program and they are recruiting athletes to come to their program, they do not send them social media posts and expect them to come to their program. They do not send them an email and expect them to come to their program. Do you know what the athletic departments of these big schools have to do to get a kid to come to their program?
Go visit the family.
They sit in their living room, they look them in the eye and say, we want you to come be a part of whatever our athletic program is. They have got to get face-to-face and talk to them one-on-one. And we are not talking about people coming to our ball program. We are talking about people stepping into the kingdom of God. And if that is required to get somebody to come play ball, that is required in order to get people saved. I say required. You don't have to be. People get saved all the time in different ways. But consistently, you want to see people consistently get saved, you talk to them face to face and you ask them, would you like to give your life to Christ? Would you like to join our church? Would you like to follow through with baptism? That face-to-face ask. And if you're a pastor, you are the golden ticket into that door. I have been on visits where they would crack a door and they would see my partner but not see me. And they would be like, literally, we are not interested. And I would say, all right then, can we at least pray for you? And they would go, oh, pastor, come on in. That has literally happened to me. You are the golden ticket. And if you show up, odds are they're going to listen to you talk to them about Jesus. So ongoing visitation. So a couple of ways we do visitation. One is the ongoing. The way this works is you have prospects developed through a funnel ministry. We're going to talk about this in the next session. So Sunday morning, someone fills out a guest card, their first time there, you get them, and you're going to assign them to a class the following week. That class, there's a class outreach leader because you've trained them to be an outreach leader and you've trained them how to do it. They're going to assign someone in their class to go visit them that week. Theoretically, they go visit them that week. They encourage them, talk to them about Jesus. They come back the following Sunday. They give a report about what they have done, and then they report that back to the staff, and you jot that down. They've been visited, gospel shared, etc. That sounds glorious, doesn't it? It provides flexibility and accountability, but here's what I have found happen with that in practice. Typically, people will make these contacts when they find time. They never find time. Also, if they didn't make the visit, now they are ashamed when they show back up to class because they haven't made the visit. So a lot of folks just won't show up to class the next week because they're going to have to answer for it. And rarely do they return those assignments. And we have worked hard on that. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've done it every which way, and I'm working hard on that. And I've never seen that work well, consistently, with everyone for a long period of time. So what we choose to do is a scheduled visitation. So a scheduled visitation, you would schedule a time. Tuesday night for us works. Wednesday nights, you could do it during the day. You recruit classes to participate. They will not participate if you don't ask them to. If you just say, hey, you're assigned for this particular Tuesday night, they're not coming. You've got to go to them and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. In fact, what I would encourage you to do, take them with you, make a visit. They see how easy it is. Will you lead your class to do this? Great. We're going to sign you up, give you one Tuesday night a month to do this. So you recruit them. They agree. They've got a class outreach leader who recruits visitation teams. The visitation teams are scheduled for 1 week out of the month. What are they going to do when they come? They're going to make phone calls. They're going to write cards. They're going to make visits. Whom are they contacting? Prospects, age graded. So the homogeneous unit of birds of a feather flock together. If I am a prospect of that church, and I am younger than 45 years old, I'm 42, so I would expect to see someone in my age range and my life stage to come see me, and that will have more of an impact if I have a senior adult come see me. So you're identifying your age ranges, that's who you're going after. The absentees need visits. The non-enrolled church members need visits. The pros to this, it prioritizes visitation. It builds team unity. There's instant accountability. The cons is it lacks flexibility because you do it on one night. And another big con is it takes hard work and people many times are just lazy. It takes our staff, and we are privileged to have a staff person in charge of this. It takes them a day and a half of their time to prepare for Tuesday night visitation because they're sorting through all the prospects, they're doing all this, and it takes that much time to do that. It is a lot of hard work. So we build that in, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. I want to get through the presentation to give you a few minutes for questions. What time is it, though? I don't know if that clock is right. What do y'all got? 10:45. All right, the clock is right. That's great. So the last thing, the D on this, the last thing under this strategy, you get people enrolled. They're in your Sunday school class. What is your strategy for having spiritual conversations with those enrolled in small groups or Sunday school classes? What is your strategy to have those conversations? So I'm just going to give you what my strategy is. I pull a list on our church software of all of those who are enrolled in a Sunday school class and have attended in the last 2 months. And I put a list together, and I call that my hit list. And so I will then schedule a meeting. I'll call them and say, hey, I'd like to come visit with you. If they are unwilling to schedule a visit, they may not be ready for that conversation. So don't view that as a rejection. View that as a reflection of what the Spirit is doing in their life and how they're responding to the Spirit. If they say, yeah, I'll have a visit with you, that's a pretty good indication the Spirit is at work and they're responding favorably to that. You're going to be set up. And so I'd like to come visit with you. Then you show up and you sit down and you say, you've been engaged in our Sunday school for a while. I would like to talk with you about becoming a member of our church. They say, okay, well, what does that take? Well, number one, you've got to be born again. So tell me, do you believe you're going to go to heaven when you die? And why do you believe that? And then off you run in a gospel conversation. The second thing that required for church membership is you've got to be biblically baptized. You said you gave your life to Christ. Tell me about your baptism. Well, I was sprinkled, or I was baptized as a Catholic, or I was whatever. So now we get into a baptism conversation. And then we say the last thing we need is for you to say, I want to be a part of this church, fill out this paperwork. Guess what? I've got a card right here that you can fill out right now. What we try to do, they can join without coming forward at our church, but we encourage them to come forward as an outward testimony and to tell the rest of the church God is up to something in my life, and it will encourage the rest of the church. So we encourage them to come forward. Typically in our invitation, we'll have decision counselors. They will walk through this entire conversation with them unless they bring that card. It has my name on it, which means I've already had that talk. I just need you to take a picture of me. That's all that means. And I have found that people, we need pictures for our database, and I have found that they would prefer to take pictures on Sunday morning than Tuesday night. Typically, the wives prefer that. But that's how we do that. We identify them, we set up a visit, we go and make that visit. Now, on our other visits, we do cold calls. We just knock on the door and we visit them. The reason for that is there's a different purpose behind the two. And most of the times when you call, number one, they won't answer. Number two, if they do answer, whether they are ready or not, they're going to tell you we're not ready most of the time. If you knock on the door, whether they're ready or not, even if they're not ready, they will at least give you the common courtesy. And some say, well, that doesn't work anymore. Okay, I have done that in rural Texas. We were 1 mile from the Red River in 3 directions in North Texas. There were 5 houses within a 5-mile radius of the church building, and it worked there. I served in Cache, Oklahoma, military base, Fort Sill. It's outside of Lawton, Oklahoma, and it worked there. I served in Seagoville, Texas, which is urban, multi-ethnic area of Dallas County, adjacent to Dallas, Texas. It worked there. I did it in Forney, Texas, which is a suburban neighborhood outside of Dallas. It worked there. I've done it in the sprawling metropolis of Lafayette, Louisiana, and guess what? It has worked there. I'm pretty sure it'll work wherever you are. And so I'd encourage you. I cannot preach that more importantly. So the keys: leadership, enrollment, intentionality. All right, I'm going to press pause. We got a few minutes before we get into the next one. I want to see if there are some questions or comments. Hey, if there are ideas, things that you have used to promote enrollment, share those with us. I'd like to write them down and maybe use them at our church. But go ahead. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?